Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. I'm the Gray Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Thursday, December 14th, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first card in our 5-card spread? What did I tell you about healing a lot of this unhealed karmic energy right now? This card's been coming up like hotcakes. Masculine and feminine in divine union. This is not something that they're going to let be unaddressed. This is literally facing the circumstances and situations right into the, grabbing the bull by the horns, if you will, being able to address these circumstances and situations. Masculine and feminine energy. As I said, the energy in divine union is freeing the energy up to get more fastidious about spiritual and energetic hygiene outside of the partnership itself. So it is observing right now and looking at anything around the divine union partnership that feels like it is in need of healing, that we see a lot of the energy's care, time, and attention is being motivated and focused towards at this time. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union, it is the same energy. It is that moment of observing what feels like it can be healed versus what feels like it has to just be moved away from at the formation or coming into the divine union frequency. This is going to feel a little bit more, like I said, like a bit of a pass energy right now, because the difference for the energy in divine union that is going through this right now versus the energy coming into the divine union frequency is entirely about choice. While masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency right now feel more like they are making the intentional choice to turn their attention towards these situations and circumstances. The masculine and feminine energy moving into that frequency feels like they have to address it because this energy is the result of the divine union forming. It's requiring that point of addressing because, as I said, it's going to be like that energy that was put on the weight and impact of something that either tore it apart or forged it like a diamond right now. The pressure is still there. It's all about how you address it. Feminine and masculine in separation right now. This is almost a moment that we see that those energies in separation are effectively mirroring one another, because feminine is also moving into this modality, if in separation, in assessing and paying a lot of attention today to whatever feels like unhealed karmic energy. And I will stress, this may have to do with some of that issue from the past returning to the surface today that feminine needs to navigate if in separation, because the important thing that we see that feminine is trying to discern with any energy from the past that is coming towards them at this time is whether there is a possibility of true healing here, or if this energy is coming back in the same modality wherein they left, i.e., inconsistency in connection, a lack of transparency. These are all circumstances or situations that the feminine in separation may be feeling like they need to knot out right now. And for the feminine, it's almost going to be this moment of like looking at this like karmic snarl and identifying if someone is also willing to do the work of untangling it, or if someone is just bringing the snarl to the feminine's doorstep. Masculine in separation right now, this could be feeling the weight of a lot of this unhealed karmic energy around you at this time. One of the things that we see that is amplifying and articulating the difference between where we see that feminine is navigating from right now versus masculine is feminine is not employed right now in healing these unhealed karmic knots. This is not something that feminine is choosing to do right now. This is almost feeling like unnecessary homework, because feminine almost feels like there's a certain level or degree where someone is potentially trying to make them have that responsibility and doing it at this time. Masculine, this is articulating a bit of your own approach right now in terms of assessing and looking at some situations around you right now as it relates to your own energetic or spiritual hygiene at this moment. Because for masculine, there's some point of observation right now that we are seeing and recognizing that is opening up one's own heart space. But it's almost bringing a lot of understanding and clarity on situations that you did not necessarily see from the perspective that you now have. And this is that moment for masculine looking at some of this unhealed energy around you. And we appreciate seeing this because for some of the masculine energy right now, this is almost taking on a bit of that karmic responsibility, if you will. This is that moment of looking and ascertaining and seeing some of that same snarl energy that the feminine is experiencing and seeing, and identifying and asking oneself, what is your responsibility to untangle? And is there a possibility in doing so? Second card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here our 5 of Wands, and this is exactly why we see that for a lot of this is like literally a reversal in approach right now that we're seeing for the masculine and feminine in this modality right now, because this is feminine energy that is almost seeing and looking at any of the unhealed karmic energy that's around them right now, if in separation, and simply looking and asking oneself, is it productive or is it just bringing in further conflict? That is exactly how the feminine is employing right now, this understanding and looking at this unhealed karmic energy to really understand and recognize what feels like it can be healed versus what feels like it's just coming back in a space or state of confrontation. Feminine, this is almost like looking again, the way that the feminine energy is navigating this in separation is almost looking at some of this unhealed karmic energy around them in whatever form it's coming towards them. Almost like a ball of yarn that's gotten tangled to a certain extent. The solution, the desire for the feminine in separation is always to untangle those knots. The problem and the hurdle here is whether the energy around them at the same time is invested in doing that work of careful unraveling, being able to smooth out that karmic energy, or if it's just going to struggle more, if it's just creating more of a struggle point, which would just create more karmic knots. Like it's literally looking right now, feminine's literally looking at some of the masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. And they're trying to see if someone's like sitting there, like tangled up in this unhealed karmic energy and being like, can you help me untangle this? Can we get this knot undone? Or if the masculine energy is coming to the feminine and it's just going like this, which is just going to make it worse. Feminine's almost like saying to a certain extent, like, I can't help the masculine energy that's going to keep going like this because it's just going to keep tangling everything up again. So for feminine, this is almost this point of observation with any of the energy that's coming towards them right now in separation, to see and determine if the masculine energy has grasped the fact that like, the conflict points, struggling, the arguments, any of that kind of like more aggressive energy that you're bringing to try to fix a problem never fixes a problem. It just makes it worse. So for the feminine energy of this modality, it's more of that observation and seeing and being like, is this energy that's actually invested and recognizes their own responsibility in helping untangle something, or are they just like struggling because like they're just like getting things more tangled, if you will. Masculine energy in separation right now, you may have realized that something about the tactic or the situation that you were in the past is exactly why some of this unhealed energy is around you in the present. Because this could be, again, one of the things we appreciate for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now is, again, opening of the heart space is allowing you a level or degree of responsibility and acknowledging your own role in how the tangle got tangled in the first place. And this could be a moment of accountability wherein you're recognizing that, like the feminine mirroring you, that if you were in that moment where you were creating conflict, the feminine almost had no other choice but to match you in that modality. And that's almost why some of this got that point of conflict. Masculine recognizing this to a certain extent, you may be feeling right now that point of observation that like, you know, the more that you bring conflict into things, the worse things typically get because you're tangling the karmic energy up, literally and metaphysically. Masculine energy in this modality right now, recognizing this about the self might be feeling a little bit difficult, because even recognizing one's own tendency to potentially having caused some of that doesn't necessarily fix the fact that you find yourself still in the midst of it. This is why we see that the masculine energy in this modality right now is looking at things from a different perception to say, what can I do to heal some of this, but without like making it a point of further struggle. All right. And almost potentially for masculine energy at this point, feeling that weight of recognizing that some of that energy of struggle is what you're effectively worried about, where you try to go forward from this point. But again, recognizing that potentially the reason you got that was because that was what you were bringing in is also helping this in the masculine and separation, coming into a better understanding of oneself. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency. This is about the struggle that basically almost now has fortified the divine union, but you need to effectively address it. It's like the elephant in the room to a certain extent, because masculine and feminine, you may be feeling like there was some kind of point of conflict that brought you closer together, but yay, the conflict is still present. It's not something that has necessarily gone away. This is why I feel like I keep articulating for the energy coming into divine union frequency now. This doesn't feel so much like a choice, but something that feels like you need to address because it's still present. So there's still a lot of energy here in terms of how to navigate circumstances and situations without creating a moment of conflict. Right? It's almost literally trying to smooth something out, and it's addressing and looking and almost at some of this unhealed karmic energy that feels like it's forged the divine union and saying, is this something that can heal, or is this going to be an ongoing struggle? Is this something that is going to continue in this way? Masculine and feminine are basically having that articulation point if coming into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, this is very interesting because this is literally masculine and feminine turning their attention to this. Masculine and feminine like having the bandwidth and looking right now and saying, how can we repair this unhealed karmic energy? What can we do to build bridges? Because again, it's almost that feeling right now, and this is what the masculine and feminine and divine union frequency want to avoid, is the fact that even if something doesn't feel like it's healed, it creates a sense of internal conflict for the energy itself. This is almost masculine and feminine energy getting to a level or degree of emotional and spiritual hygiene in the divine union frequency, that even having something that feels like it is unaddressed has that possibility. It almost like echoes back to a point of conflict that is still creating an internal conflict in the energy themselves in this vibration. So this is a lot of that trauma healing, that point of recognizing what was creating those points, all in an effort to, again, come to a point of closure in healing something or feeling that one did everything that they could, and that's just that point of letting it go. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we've got here the Hierophant in its reversal. And what's beautiful about this right now is, again, for the energy in divine union, this is the unconventional approach. This is that moment of addressing something in a way that is different that you may have done in the past. The divine union itself is giving you room to take unconventional approaches to things, specifically because, as we saw, what was the message that was being communicated in the energy of the divine union frequency yesterday as it related to the feminine energy's own anxiety in confronting things from a heart-led direction versus the masculine. This is masculine, effectively feminine, looking at masculine to a certain degree and saying, I am worried that what you're trying to do from a heart-led approach is kicking a hornet's nest. And masculine saying, I can't stress to you that because we are in the divine union frequency, there aren't going to be any hornet's nests. I'm not going to allow there to be a hornet's nest because I am effectively protecting your heart space. This is what is allowing both masculine and feminine energy almost taking these unconventional approaches around situations and circumstances, whereas they may have been more protective about their heart space, because it's that moment of observing that point of mutual accountability, that sense of mutual protection is almost like covering both of your sides to a certain extent and saying you can lead from a heartfelt approach, because that wounding that you're worried about, if it gets rejected, isn't going to fall directly on your shoulders. The divine union is effectively saying, like, we've got the back. And this is almost that amplification that's almost happening right now, and why we see a lot of the energy in the divine union is now tackling these things, because at the moment, everything about this is articulating the fact that prior to the divine union, it would have created far too much conflict to address. It would have created far too much conflict to address it. So the divine union energy is now saying, because of the divine union, it's not going to become so much of a conflict, so much as it's going to feel like you're untangling a knot. Now, masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union energy, this is going to feel more personal, because it's that feeling like that energy around you right now that's unhealed. It doesn't feel as intentionally driven. This isn't feeling like an operation or like a surgery. Like, it isn't feeling like a point of healing so much as it feels like it is something that you've had to be more defensive and protective against in the immediate space. It was feeling almost that moment of something that feels like it was trying to test the limits of the bonds between you in divine union. And there's a moment here that almost we're seeing it as amplifying, that articulates that there's something here that needs to be addressed. And everything, to a certain extent, is, again, much like the energy that's already in the divine union frequency. This is the energy looking at something and taking unconventional approaches to handling situations different than you have in the past, because now there's a divine union there. So you're not thinking unilaterally, you're thinking in the perception of the divine union. The difficulty here is for the energy in this modality. This is something that you're just learning how to do. This is like someone who's like just getting their wings, right? They're flapping around like a little bit to a certain extent. And it's this moment for the energy in the divine union frequency that just got there. That's like, it's almost like I've never had to handle this before. It's almost like feeling like that moment of being like, I don't know what to do here, because it isn't something that you've experienced prior to this. But again, it is almost amplifying again what a difference divine union makes, because it is creating this point that you can actually see that the way that you would have addressed something prior to being in divine union is different than how your optics are being perceived now. It's like having a child, but the child is the divine union. You're like, I don't even know how to think about it like now. Masculine and feminine that's in separation right now, moving in this modality, the feminine energy and separation. This is why, if feminine is dealing right now with some energy coming back towards them that is unhealed, this is feminine energy that is looking right now with a lot of care and consideration as it relates to the approach of that energy. If this is something where, again, if the energy is closed off to a certain extent, if this is the masculine energy, again, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. If this is masculine energy that's immediately taking accountability on why the feminine energy may be more closed off. This is masculine almost immediately, like almost like looking down and being like, I know what this looks like. I know, I understand, like I see what's unhealed here. If this is the masculine coming into that moment and saying, I need you to help me with this. We need to be able to fix this. Then that's feminine that's seeing that different approach that would give the feminine energy that sense of, again, feeling like there's something here that can heal. There's something here that can get fixed, because this is a masculine that is potentially recognizing. And what is the masculine doing in that moment? Being like, I see that I fell for energy around me trying to pull us apart. I see that I did something that made you feel like our commitment, my commitment to you, was not my priority. If the masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, is coming towards the feminine and instead being like adversarial, being like contesting, being like pushy, being like, what are you doing? No, that didn't happen. That's not me. I don't know what that is. Push, 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 push. This is literally feminine, almost not even doing anything, just letting that be the separation point. Because again, it's almost like the feminine is seeing a masculine that's already like covered in like karmic string. They're already tangled up to a certain extent. And the masculine, instead of observing that they're there, is just like still struggling. And that's a feminine almost getting immediate affirmation that that's not a masculine energy that can maintain the consistency of staying in the divine union vibration, because the divine union vibration requires accountability. It requires accountability. It requires mutual work to heal things, not someone struggling against that work. Now, masculine and feminine, that are the feminine separation, this is literally the feminine, and this is almost a feminine energy that doesn't feel like they need to do anything here. This is literally feminine energy that's just watching. It's literally just a feminine. If the masculine's coming towards them right now, this is feminine, like almost not coming into point of reactivity, just observing the masculine in this modality. It's like opening the door and looking at the masculine and seeing if the masculine is being like, can you help me with this? Or if the masculine's like, this is what you did. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's literally the feminine being like, hands off until they get that point of understanding. Masculine energy in separation right now. This could be a moment that you're having that feels a little bit like looking back on some past experiences and circumstances and seeing some of this within yourself. Potentially seeing this from these optics right now. And again, that point of adjusting and looking at some of this unhealed karmic energy and saying to oneself, you know, if that point of conflict that you brought through, if those points of like bringing disruption, if it actually like worked to heal something, or if it just continually makes something worse, if it almost like creates a state or space where it's like, how could something not get snarled when you're moving towards something in that point of tactic. But what's beautiful about this right now is masculine. If you're in that modality, you're potentially starting to unpack why. You're potentially starting to unpack why you have to bring that level or degree of assertiveness to things, because in a way, it feels like, you know, it's almost this moment that you may be recognizing that in a way it was like that point of feeling like you were divorcing yourself from like that acknowledgement of your own sense of accountability. Like, and that observation point that if something is broken, it's not necessarily in any karmic connection. It's never one person's fault or the other. There is two parts of that. And it's that moment of mutual accountability that is necessary to observe whether something can heal or not. So for a lot of the masculine energy right now, there's this moment we're potentially seeing that is almost allowing you this like rewind, if you will. Like, I'm going to say this like energetic rewind that may potentially even be feeling like you're replaying some circumstances and situations in your own head right now to think and see. And this is what's positive about it, because it's showing so much potential growth if you're experiencing this, because you're looking at something and being like, I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't take that tactic. I probably potentially made something worse by having that point where I had to push back against something. But now, and what's beautiful about this for the masculine and separation, you're almost getting to the heart of something and saying, why did I push back like that? Why did I have to look at something and get so assertive? Why did I have to make it a conflict point instead of a moment of mutual healing? This is the unconventional approach right now for the masculine and separation, but it's going to feel more like an internal journey of the self. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, why are you doing this, masculine and separation? Because you're giving yourself a gift. Why are you doing this, masculine and separation? Because you're giving yourself a gift. Problems. It's building that. It's going to feel like a light bulb moment. It's that point of clarity. And this, again, for the masculine energy and separation right now that's doing this work, if you will, this is that moment that feels like a point of like personal enlightenment, if you will, because it's building that sense of, again, that internal rewind, that pulling back of the clock, revisiting these situations from the past, seeing them from that outside optic of the self, is almost like going to feel a bit like that personal observation point. Like you're looking at it now, and I feel like it's almost, we're seeing here a moment for the masculine where it's almost like this desire to give something to the past self. And it feels like a little bit untangible, because the masculine, you may be feeling right now like there's something about your past experiences that you want to like reach in and give this energy to. You want to give this insight to. It's almost like you're replaying in your head and being like, I wish I could have told them this at the time. I wish I could have imparted this to them. And that, guess what? If you're doing that right now, welcome to inner child healing. Did you think the inner child healing meant when you were 4? Did you think the inner child healing meant when you were 6? No, the inner child healing means as far as you've carried the inner child that needed to be healed. So this could literally be a lot of masculine energy right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. This could be masculine energy. You could be looking at yourself a year ago and saying, I was a child then. I was acting like a child. I was acting like a spoiled child. I can heal you. I know what to give that child now. I know what to give them because of the own personal insight coming in and bestowing that sense of clarity to you in the present moment. That is the unconventional approach. It's breaking of the cycle. Beautiful if you're experiencing that masculine in separation. Feminine in separation right now, this is literally observing to see if a masculine energy has employed this ability. This is feminine energy. And again, I'm telling you right now, I bet there's a lot of feminine right now in here. I'm saying to myself, like, well, we all do that all the time. Feminine energy in this modality right now is effectively almost looking at some circumstances and situations right now to see if the masculine energy has been able to learn this ability for themselves, to have that point of understanding and adaptability at this moment, allowing this to be something that the masculine can bring something different to the feminine right now. So if the feminine is experiencing in separation a lot of this past energy coming towards them, this is why we see that the feminine is having a bit of a hands-off approach, like hands on their hips and just watching and observing, because this is a feminine that is waiting to see if this is a masculine energy that is taking that level of accountability of the self to observe a situation from the past and say, I know how I should have addressed something. I now see how I should have done something differently. I see that point of a mutual accountability. Or is this masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, bringing the same point of crisis back to the door? Bringing that sense of being like, look what you did. But you know what I mean? Like literally like just tangling themselves up right now. And feminine is just sitting and watching and waiting to a certain extent. Because again, feminine recognizes that they can't do this for the masculine. The masculine needs to show this ability for themselves. And the feminine is, again, right now at a moment where it's the point that feminine is almost leaving themselves receptive and open to the masculines that are coming towards them, seeking that ability of conviction and sense of purpose and priority. This is now what the feminine is effectively looking for. In a way, this is feminine almost grasping that doesn't mean necessarily someone saying like, you know, we're together. It's more of that gift and realizing that togetherness is not something that's just, can't just hand it to someone. You have to constantly choose it. It has to have it's an ability that someone needs to be able to observe, recognize, and maintain. Continuing masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency. This is that energy right now of, again, masculine. One of the reasons that we see that the masculine is taking a much more cavalier approach right now in relation to the energy that may have felt like the masculine, that may have felt like it was pulling apart the divine union, is because masculine's almost looking at this right now as somebody kind of coming into a state or space of temptation. Masculine's almost looking at it more from that perspective. Masculine's almost being like, you were trying to tempt me out of the divine union. This is masculine almost reaffirming and saying to a certain extent, you probably didn't know you were doing that. You probably didn't recognize it, but this is what I want. This is what I desire. This is my priority. Masculine moving through that. That's why we see the masculine energy in this modality is having a little bit more empathy. Because this is masculine almost saying like, I'm going to assume you didn't know what you were doing. I'm assuming that you just wanted me and you didn't think about like the full weight of what I was trying to like create. Feminine is taking a lot more of a protective approach on this, because feminine feels like this is a point of someone trying to pull the masculine out of the divine union frequency. For the feminine, this is almost now an energetic point where feminine's looking at something and saying like they need affirmation to see that someone's intentions were pure and not that someone was trying to do that intentionally. Masculine and feminine that are in the divine union frequency, deep in the heart of it right now, this is that moment that we see that this is literally the energy putting forth in situations from the past around unhealed energy, simply because the choices that you're making in divine union right now are giving you that flexibility in terms of exploring spaces or places, of having new options, taking new approaches. Because again, it's that moment, that point of confrontation that you may have been fearing in the past. It's not necessarily something that you feel is so valid right now, because it's almost that moment of feeling like you'll immediately have that emotional, positive reinforcement in the divine union frequency that's amplifying the love that you're trying to bring to circumstances and situations from a state or space of healing. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, you know what? For the retrograde starting, there sure is a heck of a lot of communication today, is all I got to say. I don't know if it's because of that Sagittarius, it's probably the Sagittarius new moon energy. It's the Sagittariusness of it. That's probably what it is. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now. This is that moment. This is like, again, it's like and this is why the retrograde already happened. It's like the retrograde happened like last week. I told you the masculine and feminine energy already did a lot of this energetic homework last week during the shadow period. And this is what's allowing, to a certain extent, that flexibility or fluidity, if you will, during this retrograde to address, and again, getting ahead of the homework. The retrograde energy isn't creating as much of a slowdown because it was anticipated by the energy in the divine union. This is allowing now to take advantage of that point of flexibility that the pause point creates, to be able to communicate more effectively, to do all those things that you haven't been able to do, to check things off of the list that are a little bit lower down because you spent the pre-retrograde shadow period addressing all of the things before they happened. This is actually allowing this to be a very productive day right now for the energy in retrograde, because it's allowing a lot more fluidity, because you did a lot of the emotional unpacking, if you're in the divine union frequency, a bit ahead of time of the retrograde today. Masculine and feminine right now, this is that point of communication, amplifying your unified approach to circumstances and situations right now. And again, it's feeling less like, so this is going to be like that feeling right now that's happening for the energy coming into the divine union frequency, that to circumstances and situations right now. And again, it's feeling less like, so this is going to be like that feeling right now that's happening for the energy coming into the divine union frequency, the approach that you're taking right now to navigate and handle circumstances and situations. That again, if things start feeling like they're moving faster, it's because they are, because you're doing the work for two with one. You're creating the energy, the divine union itself is now that force. It's like the energy that was created in the divine union getting formed is now taking points of activation in terms of how to navigate circumstances or situations that may have put some pressure on the formation of the divine union to begin with. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is a lot of movement in separation too, because these energies are reflecting each other. Masculine in separation right now, that point of understanding, that point of overcoming an internal hurdle, looking at something right now potentially, and potentially even something from your past, seeing it from a different optics is giving you a new approach to handle something in an unconventional way. You're breaking out of your own sense of conventionality. You're breaking out of your own cycles. You're seeing things in these different perspectives. It is providing you some key insight in terms of how you may have addressed something in the past versus how you address something now. And if masculine energy, if you're in this modality, it's that desire now to like rush forward and amend. Because again, it's almost that feeling of wanting to give. It's like masculine going, I want to give this I want to give this insight to a version of me in my past. There's a version of me in my past that I wish I could give this to. That is impossible. So masculine is almost taking that in separation and saying, where can I bring it forward today? What can I do with this now to change at least where I am with what I know now? That point of personal understanding, that point of personal knowledge of the self. Feminine energy in separation is literally just looking for anyone who's holding that ball. It's like feminine is looking for anyone who understands and recognizes that like they want to move in this direction. And this is why we see that the feminine is not having any time or concern to anyone that's bringing right now any kind of point of conflict in that to the door of the feminine. Because this is almost feminine saying, if there's an argumentative point in the direction that we're going, then that is just amplification that we are going in different directions. I'm going to say it again for the people of the back. If there's a point of disagreement, if there's a conflict point occurring in the directionality of something, this is feminine that's almost recognizing that their job is not to articulate and amplify to an energy which way to move. It's just to observe if it's moving in that way or not. And for feminine, this is feminine almost saying, like, again, this is the feminine energy that like touched the wire on feeling that divine union frequency, being like, I don't have time. The feminine energy is almost saying to the masculine, bearing in mind this is not based on gender right now, I don't have time to argue with you about the viability and the direction on why you would want to move in that direction. It should be self-evident. If it is not self-evident, feminine energy is saying, if it is not self-evident, then you don't want it. If you don't want it, there's no point in arguing because it's not something that you can give me. It's not a bauble you can give me. It's something that we need to mutually maintain together, constantly going forward. If I need to fight you at every moment to recognize and help you realize that, then that is something I cannot help. And this is feminine almost saying, I'm going this way. Are you coming or are you not? I'll be over here. I'm going to continue moving forward in this way. You can either keep pace and follow me in this way, or you can continue to stay in that modality of feeling like there's a tangle here that doesn't need to be tangled. The feminine, and more than anything, is effectively saying, and the feminine in the modality right now is almost saying to the masculine, if you need me to help you on it, if you need me to help you tie your shoes so we can go running in that direction, absolutely. I'll be willing to help you untangle your shoelaces so we can move in the direction of the divine union. But if you're going to sit there and fight about it, if you're going to scream and holler about the fact, about the direction, then feminine saying you can kind of just stay you can just stay where you are. This is feminine almost getting very like, again, like brass tacks here. This is like you're either moving this way or you're not. And this is why we see feminine's almost saying, because feminine's almost, again, leaving themselves open to new modalities. Because feminine's saying, I've seen energy that wants that. I already see energy that is going after the same thing that I am going after. There's energy around me. Feminine seeing that point and saying, this isn't a question. I'm not going to argue with you about whether you want that is going after the same thing that I am going after. There's energy around me. Feminine seeing that point and saying, this isn't a question. I'm not going to argue with you about whether you want forward. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 6 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our 5 of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Knight of Cups in its reversal. Again, this is that moment that we're effectively seeing. It's like something, again, emotionally offered, can't control the outside way of receiving it. For the masculine and feminine, the feminine energy and masculine, they're in divine union or not. This is effectively why we see that masculine and feminine are both employing this approach as it relates to articulating and identifying what feels like you can fix versus what you feel like you can't fix. Masculine and feminine are almost not letting that point of opposition affect or impact the direction that they want to move forward in this way. Specifically due to the fact that masculine and feminine are almost articulating right now, if in divine union, they're not doing it for the outside energy. This isn't a moment about moving in this vibration, moving from a point of love and empathy for the sake of getting something back in return. This is masculine and feminine energy almost saying to themselves, it is that act of giving forth in this way that is its reward. That is the reward, regardless of how it is received, regardless of what the outcome is. It is that sense of personal accountability that the energy in the divine union is navigating right now, that's almost saying to them, it doesn't matter whether the energy around there chooses, because it's almost that point of observation that the energy in the divine union is experiencing, that is saying to force that point of acceptance would be just as harmful. More than anything, it is just allowing that grace, allowing that ability to give forth in that way is that point of healing that the feminine and masculine are identifying, which is why we see it is allowing for a bit of unconventional approaches right now, because it's almost that point of masculine and feminine moving in this direction, regardless, and almost expecting and anticipating that some of the energy around them right now, if they're trying to heal this unhealed karmic energy, isn't going to be as receptive to it. It's that point of saying it doesn't matter if it's receptive or not. It's what we ought to do. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union, it's going to feel less like a personal choice. It's going to feel more like something that requires a response. That there's something here that feels like it is more immediately occurring. It's creating an immediate modality of conflict. You're just coming into this that feels like it is more immediately occurring. It's creating an immediate modality of conflict. You're just coming into this fight. Cause that friction point to say, is this something that can be amended for? Was this actually harmless? Is there something that can be healed here? Or is this going to be an ongoing conflict point? Is this something that is going to be continual? Because that is almost that point of determination right now that we're even seeing with the masculine energy, bearing in mind this not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, which is almost amplifying whether this is going to be a moment of adjustment or masculine feeling like they need to leave some energy behind as they move into the divine union frequency. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is exactly why we see that the feminine energy in separation right now. You may have a lot of masculine energy coming towards you right now, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Feminine is using the act of discernment right now to decide if there is a legitimacy in terms of the emotional ability to build forward with someone. If this is masculine energy that is, again, navigating anything that feels like it's unhealed with the feminine from a point of opposition, from a point that feels like it is more assertive or more aggressive. This is a feminine that feels to a certain extent, and again, this is why the feminine feels like they can't navigate this. This is a masculine that hasn't come in touch with their heart space. They're not allowing themselves to fully experience and express their feelings. They're allowing that point of reactivity to block their heart space. And so this is a feminine that's like almost like at that point is saying, I can't fix that. You got to be able to do that yourself. You got to learn how to do that. And this is a feminine that's almost coming through right now, the masculine coming towards them and being like, I can help you with that. Feminine's like, I'm really good at that. That's like what the feminine's bag is. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. But you have to ask. You have to ask. You have to have that. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. But you have to ask. You have to ask. You have to have that right now, and at the masculine energy that's coming towards them to say, are you asking? What are you asking me for? And this could even be a moment of feminine seeing this energy coming towards them, especially if it's feeling like more like combative and saying, what would you like? Can I help you? What would you like? You need to tell me why you're here. Are you just here to come back and create more conflict? Or is there something else that you're trying to ask for? Is the conflict a smokescreen beyond what you actually want? And the feminine is intuitive enough with the masculine. The feminine's like, I know it is. But do you know it is? Because if you don't know it is, then we got a problem here. If you can't see that, then there's a problem here. Because this is a feminine that's like, I can see the wounded child behind the guys. But if you can't see it, I can't help that kid. I can't help that child. I can't help that wound. Masculine, if in separation right now, this is that moment that, again, you potentially are seeing how some of that, a sense like that anger, that frustration was to protect your heart space. It was to protect your heart space, that was like that moment that, again, that wounded inner child, that all of that at a time felt like it was necessary, but you're now potentially realizing that you may have brought it forth in situations that cause more harm than good. And that point of understanding is, again, it's inner child healing that is happening. It may be like 6 months ago, maybe like 6 weeks ago. If you haven't healed the inner child, then the inner child is any point in the past where the inner child is still, again, having a negative impact, because the inner child is you. If you're defending the inner child too much, then that is the thing that needs to be healed. Masculine, you may be recognizing this right now, which is, again, at the very least, especially if you're in separation right now, it is that moment of potentially seeing how you may have had to, you addressed situations in the past where you should have led from the heart space. You should have led from how you feel, instead of experiencing and reacting to protect that, to defend that, to amplify the validity of how you're feeling. It's like you were defending the validity of how you feel without expressing how you feel. Just comes across as confrontation. Masculine, continuing to get clarification, and on these cards right now, between our 5 of Wands in combination with our Hierophant in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Again, it's not a cozy feeling coming into healing. It's not a cozy feeling. This is why we see the masculine and the feminine in divine union right now are literally turning their attention on it. What did I describe this as? This is like, again, you're shining this light. Like the energy of the divine union feels like they're in the sunshine. They feel like they have this light on them. The masculine and feminine energy in that modality, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, wants that sunlight to hit all of the spaces and places that it can. And this is almost masculine and feminine. I kind of identified this right now. It's like someone who's like standing in the shade. There's something, again, almost energetically for the masculine and feminine and divine union right now. It feels like there's something that's in the shade. And that point of fastidiousness is coming through right now, because it's allowing the energy of the divine union to almost look at each other and be like, well, what's that? What's that there? Like, what's over there? Like, it's almost that point internally that you're like, oh, I think we can put some light there. Like, again, this is coming through as almost like energetic or spiritual repair work, but it's very intentional on the masculine and feminine energy, because, again, it is looking at circumstances or situations that are creating a modicum of sadness in their own experience. They're feeling that weight. It's like it's giving me a lot of that like princess in a pea kind of modality, right? When everything else is going well, you can start to notice that little niggling thing a little bit more. It becomes more pronounced. It's something that you can't ignore. It makes it hard. So we're seeing there for a lot of the energy in divine union. That's almost what's happening right now. It's like this little niggling thing that's now bothering you. That is effectively you kind of trying to clear a lot of that unhealed energetic karma, if you will. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now, this is going to feel less like a small thing. This is a big thing. This is something that literally potentially tried to break the divine union from forming. There's a deeper anxiety here. This doesn't feel like it was distant in the past. This feels like it's immediate and very much confrontational. It's something that needs to be addressed because you're right in the face of it. So for masculine and feminine navigating this right now, again, it does create a point of sadness, because it's that feeling that, again, it's like the divine union, while it was fortified by it, it feels like not all the energy around you is in favor of the divine union, which is why we see that the energy is also working to navigate that, to have a point of positivity, to see if there's something that can be fixed here versus something just released. Feminine energy in separation right now. This is feminine energy that is like absolutely not. Like feminine energy is trying to break away from anything that's trying to create conflict, because feminine energy is just having that point of observation and saying, Why would feminine energy sign up for anything that feels confrontational or adversarial? Why would feminine energy sign up for anything that feels confrontational or adversarial? Why would conflict? The observation that conflict is present is not necessarily something that needs to be remediated. It's something that feminine is just recognizing that they need to take note of, because it is literally like looking at the quality or characteristic of a cloth. It's like being like, this cloth is smooth, this cloth feels like burlap. If the energy is one that feels like it's burlap, that's not something that feminine cannot change the nature of the cloth, the web or the weave. They just need to like observe that it is in that modality. This is why the feminine is not trying to heal it right now, because feminine is just looking at it as a characteristic of that nature. And feminine looking at it at this point is almost articulating, and again, this is feminine no longer taking on that karmic debt of healing someone else through it. This is feminine being like, this is the quality of that cloth. I may love this cloth, but it's itchy on my skin. Doesn't feel good. Can't sleep with it. It's too uncomfortable. It's always trying to hurt me, even as I'm wearing it. This is feminine basically saying, I can't fix that. If you only one person is capable of changing the fabric that they are made, and that is that individual. So this is, again, feminine, not moving into that vibration of trying to change the nature of someone, because it's not consensual to do so. It's more feminine coming into a space and being like, that's just the nature of you. That's just who you are. If you can, and that's, and almost feminine, realizing that that act of release is, in a way, their own karmic clearing, because it's almost that moment of saying, I can see how uncomfortable it makes things for you. You're choosing to wear a hair shirt everywhere you go. You're choosing to wear a hair shirt everywhere you go, and then you're wondering why everything feels itchy. It's like feminine being like, until you choose to take that off, you're going to make it itchy for me too. And this is feminine almost saying, like, again, that point of release is looking at masculine being like, have you decided to take that shirt off yet? No? Okay, that's cool. I'm not subscribing to it. I don't want to wear that. Masculine, in that modality, this is something that you may have been realizing, like that hair shirt. You may be feeling like you're looking, like I keep saying, you're looking down. You're like, oh, I've been the whole time, I didn't have to be so confrontational. I didn't have to have that point of, like, looking back at the past self is almost now like masculine in separation is looking back at the past self and being like, we've been wearing a hair shirt, like you were wearing a hair shirt back then. And then you were wondering, like, it's like you had like these like porcupine things sticking out of you at every point. And then you were wondering why everyone was like backing away. It's almost that moment of observation of the self and saying, and again, for a lot of the masculine energy, if you're going through this right now, this is that point of dawning healing that's potentially coming in. Because again, it's like if you're walking around everywhere and everything is having the same situation and you're saying, oh, I guess everybody is like that, I guess all the world is like that, is it? Or are you just wearing that? Are you projecting that outwards? Are you wearing porcupine quills and then wondering why everyone is having such a strange reaction to you? Right? It's almost that point of recognition and seeing that what you give forward is how you're going to experience what is coming back to you. And so for the masculine energy in this modality right now, again, this is going to be a lot of healing coming through, even in that act of separation, because it's an observation that maybe some of the struggle points that you experienced in the past had to do a bit with what you were bringing towards them, right? And it's that ability of understanding that allows you an ability to change course. It allows you a point of personal observation to potentially choose something different. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Hierophant in combination with our Page of Pentacles, in combination with our Seven of Cups in its transverse. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our King of Wands in its reversal. Masculine and feminine. that are in divine union. This is that moment of observation. And again, it is that moment. I think that even now, one of the things that's difficult about this is for the masculine energy giving forth in this way, there is an observation point in the mending of a fence between what you can and you cannot control, right? All we can do is give forth in what we hope to achieve. All we can do is give forth in that way. And for masculine right now specifically, a lot of this energy that we're seeing is this modality or this moment of observing that there is that point that is beyond one's own choice in terms of what you're giving forth and how it is going to be amplified. And again, even in this modality right now, we see that masculine and feminine are like navigating that space together, because masculine we see is trying to move more in that space of healing, of building those bridges, of trying to like heal some of that unhealed karmic energy around them. Almost giving forth a gift, if you will. Thank you for the gift, with an observation that what someone chooses to do with it is effectively up to them. You know what I mean? This is like masculine energy is almost looking right now at like the energy of like their own emotions, what they're willing to offer, and being like, you know, someone is either going to take this and recognize the value of it, or someone's going to look at it like a regifted toaster. You know, like it could go either way. It's like a flip of the coin. It really depends on the modality of that energy, because in a way, this is masculine that is moved into this space or place of growth and emotional healing in the divine union, and is almost trying to articulate and amplify to a certain extent. And this is why we see that the masculine's moving in this point of grace right now, is that point of understanding and saying, I'm bringing this forward to energy around me, like almost like a laurel branch, to try to articulate and say, I've changed. I've changed my mind. I've changed my opinion. I've changed my approach. I'm offering that opportunity to you. And that moment is almost coming through in terms of feeling like the masculine, even recognizing now that that could be a moment that someone chooses not to accept it. It's really like it's masculine is doing it more. And again, it's the point that we see here that's beautiful about this. Masculine in the divine union right now is almost saying like, you know, what you like, I'm not doing it to get something back in kind. This is literally masculine like and feminine almost doing this together and being like, we're not doing this to get something back. There's no agenda in this. There's no like deeper desire. We're doing it because it is what we desire to do. How the energy around them experiences that right now, that is that unknown variable. But again, for masculine and feminine, it's not the reason. And that's what's really beautiful about the energy. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union, this is that moment that doesn't feel so much like you're just doing it because you want to. It's feeling like you're making some choices right now because you have to. Because the unknown variable feels like it's more of an immediate potential threat to the formation of the divine union. There's something here that feels like it's not necessarily in like that like hooray mentality of the union coming together. Masculine and feminine in this modality right now, this is that moment where that unilateral offering forward in this way is amplifying to a certain extent the lack of care about what others think about the divine union. This is almost that point of masculine and feminine saying like, we're going to continue forward in this way. We hope that you'll join us here, you know, like, but if you don't, that's your prerogative. That's your prerogative. It's almost masculine and feminine. Like I told you, you can tell the divine union's forming because it's not a point of trying to push it into someone. It's like water off a duck's back. You're like, doesn't matter. You can think what you want. It's not important. We're not doing it to convince you. We're doing it because it's what we desire. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is exactly why we see the feminine energy right now. I just got to say feminine energy right now has a lot of masculine energy potentially around them. If in separation right now, feminine energy in separation is utilizing instead the power of discernment to determine the intentionality of the energy approaching them at this time. Feminine energy is recognizing that the simple fact is that like some energy doesn't realize what is necessary to maintain a true commitment. They're under masculine energies, under some impression that it's just something that can be offered. For feminine in that modality right now, this is almost looking at the masculine energy around them and saying, do you understand what it actually takes to be in divine union? Have you grasped that? Or do you still think that it is a prize, like a box of cracker, like a gift in a box of Cracker Jacks that you can hold or offer me at your leisure as some kind of point of leverage? Because the feminine energy is almost recognizing right now that an energy that thinks that that the commitment is a point of leverage is vastly off the mark in terms of understanding actually the fact that love is a frequency that you maintain. And that lack of that frequency is self-evident. It is not a frequency that you can offer because it is something that you need to mutually create between you. Feminine's moving into that modality right now, and feminine's just looking to see if the masculine energy around them grasps that. Masculine energy in separation right now, this could be that moment that you're potentially realizing and recognizing that you may have been trying to force something to be a shape that you cannot force to be. That the way that something moves into that modality is not something that you can objectify. It's something that you have to inhabit. And if you are not inhabiting it, then it's the opposite of that. So even masculine energy in this modality right now, and I described this, some of the masculine energy right now, a lot of this lesson is potentially coming because you feel like you had something. It's like something you've forgotten, something that you got really close to having that was taken away for a minute. Coming into that understanding, coming into that point of recognition is what is effectively helping you right now navigate forward in this way, because it's helping you recognize that it's not something that you can just desire to give or to take away from someone. It's something that you need to be committed in terms of what you're trying to maintain. And in this way, it is helping you understand your own sense of commitment going forward, because it's helping you recognize that that sense of conviction is the goal in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And just desiring it isn't something that you can just ask for and get. It's something that you need to embody. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Between our Seven of Cups in its transverse and our Page of Pentacles in combination with our Eight of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Four of Cups. Now, masculine and feminine, what did I just say is happening? Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, it is that moment that we're seeing that like you're not doing it, you're not maintaining that frequency because of what it's going to give back. It's almost that point in recognizing that the masculine and feminine energy in this modality, it's not something that you're doing to have some kind of like response. It's not something that you're doing because you want it to give back to you in some way. You're doing it because it is the way it ought to be. You're feeling that vibration. You're in that modality. You're in that space or place of healing. You're offering that healing to those around you right now. And again, the beautiful thing about this is like that point of almost observing and saying, this isn't something that I'm offering to you right now as it relates to healing some of this unhealed karmic energy around the divine union, with any sense of requiring anything back in kind. It's literally just offering it towards the energy around the divine union right now to say that this is that point of healing, that there is this opportunity to heal. You can just come out, you can stay in that, if you will, and that will effectively allow you to continue forward in that way. For the masculine and feminine in this modality right now, it's almost like this moment of recognizing that some of this energy that you're putting it forth to right now, they may not necessarily immediately be receptive to it. This is some unhealed karmic energy. But it's almost this point that we see that the energy in this modality is almost saying like, you know, putting it there, Like just putting it there like a gift, like offering it and saying, you don't have to react to it. Just know that is there. Know that level of care is there, because that is the intentionality of the energy of the divine frequency that is coming through. Masculine and feminine, and what someone chooses to do with it, whether they want to take that point and build that center of healing, having that be a point of healing, is ultimately up to them. Masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency, this is almost extending that laurel branch to, if you will, to any energy that feels like it was creating that point of conflict related to the divine union forming. This is almost energetically that energy right now, again, looking at something and saying, in a way, it's almost going to feel a lot like the masculine and feminine energy in divine union, like taking the high road, if you will. Almost allowing that point and recognizing that the mutual ability to take the high road gives someone an opportunity to reconsider their choices. And so that modality, again, the divine union's moving into, the energy coming into divine union is moving into that same space in terms of almost offering someone a point of saying, I'm sure you didn't mean anything by it. I'm sure you didn't really mean that to come across that way, but just so you know, when you're like, this is something that isn't going anywhere, this is what we're creating, and you are welcome here as well. That is that moment of, again, masculine and feminine, doing that like spiritual jujitsu of taking something negative and turning it into an opportunity to be positive. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is the feminine energy having a lot of the masculine energy coming towards the feminine right now. This is feminine effectively opening their own heart space up, allowing these opportunities for masculine energy to approach them. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. The thing that matters for the feminine right now is observing and recognizing whether the energy around them is in that same modality. If they understand that what they offer in terms of commitment isn't something that feels like you can just hand it to someone, but something that you need to be committed in moving into and staying in and focusing on. This is feminine effectively holding forth to a certain extent and just utilizing their powers of observation to see if the energy towards them recognizes this need or this ability to change. Masculine in separation, this is that point of observation that you may be having around some past circumstances or experiences. And it could be this moment that you may be realizing that some of the reason that some of the energy around you is unhealed is because you may have been approaching commitment in a way that feels like you were trying to offer it like a ball. Like you can either play with it or you can't. I'm going to take it home or it's going here. Do you want this ball or do you want my ball? Well, you can't have my ball. Masculine energy in this modality, you may start realizing that feminine is not interested in the ball. Feminine's looking for the energy that is in that modality where they see through words and actions that the commitment is actually there. And it's not something that you can offer and pull away from because it was never yours to give in the first place. It's not something that one person can give the other one. It's a commitment between two energies to maintain the same karmic direction. It's a frequency. So for the masculine energy in this modality right now, there's a moment that you may be reconsidering and experiencing circumstances and situations right now because you're may potentially recognizing how your own ability in trying to look at it like an objectification point was making you feel like you were playing a game of keep away with love instead of recognizing that it was never a game of keep away. It was a race. It's like a marathon. It's not something that you can just stop and start. You have to show the ability to continue to move in that vibration, or it is not there. Continuing, and feminine is effectively looking at that, like for that right now. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Knight of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Sun card in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with Our high priestess in its reversal. So again, this is that moment that we are effectively seeing to a certain extent, that again, masculine and feminine. And this is very interesting because again, this is almost the feminine having this moment of reconsidering their own anxiety around circumstances and situations right now due to being in divine union. Specifically because we are identifying here that for the energy coming into divine, that they're in the divine union frequency right now, this is feminine energy that's having that point of caution around this right now. Feminine energy, ironically, is the one that's moving away from a point or space of wanting to open their heart space in that way, because feminine energy is having that this become, and again, seeing masculine in this modality to a certain extent is almost building a level or degree of anxiety to feminine, because it's almost re-triggering feminine and remembering situations and circumstances wherein the feminine tried to lead with love and it did not respond in that space or place that felt positive. This is the feminine energy requiring and needing that sense of stability right now, even in divine union, because this is a feminine energy that is feeling that point of anxiety again around situations and circumstances where the feminine saw themselves moving in that same direction and capacity and feeling like it wasn't necessarily received the way that they had hoped. So even for the energy right now in divine union, having this moment of seeing masculine trying to like build bridges, mend fences, this is almost this moment with feminine that there's some deeper work that's happening here, because it's almost triggering a deeper wound in the feminine, seeing that, because this is that point that's almost amplifying. And I need to say that this is going to feel like a little bit about that difference in the energy, which is almost this moment of seeing masculine's own confidence in doing so is almost like feeling a little bit of a feminine being like, must be nice. Like, must be nice. Because this is a feminine that has seen this affect energy in an unhelped, like it's a difficult, how do I explain this? The feminine energy has been wounded moving in that modality. The feminine energy is seeing the masculine energy in a modality that they almost always inhabit, that they've had to teach themselves not to inhabit. And seeing the fact that the masculine has the confidence to move in that way is almost triggering to the feminine, because the feminine is almost looking and saying, this is a grace that the masculine has in embodying this that is so painful, because this is feminine being like, I can't move like that in this vibration. I can't move like that in that vibration. It doesn't work the same way for me. It has deeper consequences. This is almost feminine, like tapping into some like ancestral energy here and feeling that deeper wound of saying, when feminine moves with that opening of the heart space, it almost always has a negative consequence. So even now for masculine in this modality, it could be seeing the feminine having a bit of that reactivity point and almost recognizing and feeling like that feminine is having a hard time articulating why, because in a way it's almost like realizing that like deeper mother wound is one that is almost like very foreign to you to a certain extent, because it's one that you haven't even necessarily had to feel. Masculine and feminine in this modality right now. But again, if in divine union, the articulation of the feminine in that energy is one that you're coming to understand better. Masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency. This is that moment that we see to a certain extent why the impact of energy putting pressure or trying to pull the divine union apart feels like it's having a much deeper impact on the feminine energy. Specifically because it's like the feminine energy is intuiting that there were deeper implications around it. Masculine, you may also, ironically now, for the energy in divine union, this is again more masculine energy trying to downplay or underplay something that was experienced by the divine union that put pressure on something. Because it's almost this moment that we see that masculine realizes that, like, you know, if they don't downplay that energy, then it's just going to create more grief for the feminine, because there's something about that feminine energy that's taking it much more on a personal level. because that energy of seeing someone trying to pull masculine out of divine union feels like in some way, shape, or form, it was a recrimination on the feminine energy. So this is why we see that in a way, like even now, if the divine unions are forming in this modality, it's very hard because it's effectively creating this moment for feminine that it's like there's no way that they can't take it as personally. Masculine and feminine that are in separation, this is the masculine energy, potentially masculine. You are having a moment. And again, a lot of this feels like a point of personal understanding of this. Well, let's do the feminine first. Feminine energy in separation right now. This is that moment that, again, this is why feminine is not chasing after or trying to educate the energy right now. They're just observing the masculine energy. Because the feminine energy has recognized and understood that even if they see these things in the masculine, if the masculine does not grasp them about the self, then there is nothing that the feminine can say that masculine will not be reactive to. Because how can you tell an energy that is reactive that they are being reactive? It needs to come from the internal, external, because that in itself, by saying to someone, you are being reactive, is going to generate a reactivity point. So this is a feminine almost, again, just observing and trying not to move into that same modality. And almost recognizing that if the energy is in a point of reactivity, it's like a live wire. You can't touch it. You can't fix it. They need to be able to heal it. They need to be able to see it internally in order for the healing to begin. And so this is almost feminine, almost moving right now in a space that feels very difficult, because this is feminine almost literally saying, I can't be reactive to this. I just need them to understand. I need to see that the masculine can see what they are doing and come forward and observe that in order for that healing to come through. And so feminine right now is, again, they're holding themselves back, and it's hard because feminine doesn't want to be in this modality. Feminine feels in a way, and this is the feminine going through their own effort of stoicism. Feminine feels like in a way they're withholding their own healing from masculine. They're seeing something in the masculine that they know that they can heal, but the masculine must observe it within the self before it can be healed. And feminine in this modality, it feels painful to be in this because it feels like feminine is denying. It's like watching masculine, seeing these things about them and feeling like they can't impart that wisdom to them. It feels to the feminine like they have to hold their tongue even when they want to tell them and show them and help them through this, but knowing that there's nothing that they can do until the masculine is at a point of understanding. Masculine, if in separation right now, this is that moment that, again, you may be experiencing and seeing some circumstances from a different perspective, and you may be recognizing how some of your reactivity in the past was hiding your own feelings, not just from the feminine, but from your own self. That a lot of that reactivity point was almost like protecting a wounded inner child to a certain extent, but almost realizing that the reactivity point was like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because like the more that you are reactive, it's like almost looking at someone and saying like, you're going to abandon me, you're going to abandon me, you're going to abandon me. It's like you're pushing someone like this until someone's like, you're telling me to abandon, like you're giving me no choice but to abandon you, because every time I try to come near you, you're pushing as hard as you can, right? And this is a feminine that's almost looking and saying, the only way I could come close to you is by denying your own boundaries, moving towards you beyond consent of what you've said you want. You're laying the boundary a mile away from yourself, and then you're saying that I'm not close to you. And this is a feminine that, again, this could be a moment masculine that you're recognizing this and realizing that the reason the feminine is far from you or distant is potentially because you pushed them away. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between the Sun in its reversal and the King of Wands in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? clarification coming through right now with our Seven of Wands in its reversal. Don't force it. The moment you try to force it, you're going to lose it. Masculine and feminine in divine union, moving through this modality right now. This is why we see that masculine and feminine are almost moving into the space, because the divine union frequency is like that flow state. It's that harmony. It's like that harmony. They're wanting to maintain that point, and they're wanting to bring that to others. They want to move into that state where everyone is kind of, again, experiencing that same point of positivity. For the energy in this modality, it feels very difficult because, again, they can't, it's like seeing kind of energy that's choosing to stay in shadow. You can't force someone to step forward in that way. What can you do? You can just open the door. You can leave yourself open. You can offer that point to someone. And so I feel like we're seeing here that a lot of that energy is almost like just trying to amplify at this time in divine union. This is why it feels like a little bit of spiritual or energetic housekeeping. This is like inviting Scrooge to like Christmas dinner. This is saying like, listen, you don't have to stay in that. You don't have to stay there. You can just come in. Like it doesn't have to be an issue. It doesn't have to be any kind of like navigation point. We're just, it's here. When you want it, it's here. Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now. This is almost like effectively the choice that you're making to navigate some of these situations and circumstances, which is funny because I have to stress, what did we see that was happening a few days ago that was causing that energy potentially to pull away from the divine union? It was like masculine went forward to a bunch of energy and was like, I'm going into divine union. And there was a lot of energy around masculine that was like, a lot cooler if you didn't. A lot cooler if you didn't. And now masculine and feminine in divine union are going towards those same energies and being like, I'm sorry you feel like that. Be a lot cooler if you didn't. Be a lot cooler if you didn't. It's taking that energy and again, recalibrating it, adjusting, allowing that ripple to have occurred, but then saying, this is something that is not going away. It would be a lot better if you modified your own energy to match the frequency. Masculine and feminine in separation. This is that moment that feminine, again, this is a painful energy for feminine to inhabit. I have to stress this. This isn't easy, and especially is very difficult when energy comes back to feminine in this modality, because it is not due to a lack of love. I'm going to say this again. It's not due to a lack of love on the feminine energy. It is due to an energy that's not recognizing their own tendencies make it impossible to maintain the frequency that is necessary to maintain a divine union, because the consistency is key. And so for feminine, if there's a masculine right now that's trying to come back towards feminine, this is feminine literally trying to utilize their powers of observation to see if masculine has recognized their own patterns enough to identify the type of shift that is necessary internally to allow them to maintain a consistent love frequency. Because this is also potentially feminine energy that realizes that even though someone can dip and curve, that's not what you're seeking. So there may be good things and bad things, but it doesn't have to be like that. It could just be consistent. And this is feminine effectively looking and saying to the masculine energy, I know you can hit high notes. I know you can hit low notes, but can you carry a tune? Can you carry a tune? This is literally the feminine looking to the masculine and saying, show me. I don't want to hear that how high you can take it. I don't want to hear how low you can take it. Can you maintain a C note? And this is simply feminine and masculine. Feminine is just watching and seeing if the masculine can do so. Masculine in separation right now. This is that moment that we are effectively seeing that you yourself are potentially looking back at situations and circumstances in your own experience where you may have thought that love was about hitting like the highest note you can not realizing that those high notes were immediately met by low notes, and suddenly realizing that that isn't love. That is being addicted to emotional highs and lows. That is not what love is. Love is maintaining a key. It's about hitting a note and maintaining that consistency. So for masculine right now, this is feeling like an internal journey. If you're coming into this because you're seeing potentially how that rough water, this is feeling like an internal journey. If you're coming into this because you're seeing potentially how that rough water in correction. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our King of Wands in its reversal in combination with our Four of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Hangman in its reversal. Now, masculine and feminine energy. What are we talking about with hitting a consistency point? Remember what I said with the energy in the divine union? That, like I said, it's going to feel a little annoying to people. Because, yeah, this is feminine and masculine energy. What did I just say? What is love? Love is a consistent note. So even if the energy around the divine union right now is in a modality where they're not accepting of it, is the feminine and masculine energy taking it personally? No. Are they trying to react to it? No. They're saying consistent in what they're offering. This is literally masculine and feminine in this modality being like, do you want a hug? 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 Like, and the energy is going, no, I don't want a hug. And then being like, you sure? You sure? You sure you don't want a hug? You want a hug? You want a hug? This is literally for the energy around the masculine and feminine in this modality. If you're not ready for that type of energy, it's going to drive you like up the wall, if you will. Because it is the consistency, the masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency are holding the note. They're just like, I'm going to keep singing here. I'm just keep holding this note. You're welcome to come join it. You want to sing it? You can sing it. We're here. Just come join us here. Masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency. This is how you're handling any of the energy that tried to put weight on tearing the divine union apart. What is the energy doing? The same exact thing that the energy in the divine union frequency is doing, which is holding the note, which is saying, actually, you're just learning how to hold the note because you just started. You're like, be a lot cooler if you didn't. Sorry you felt like that. Sorry you felt like that about the divine union forming. It's cool. We know you didn't mean anything by it. Be a lot cooler if you didn't. Same energy. It's the choosing of effectively saying, it's not affecting us. If you're going to be uncomfortable, it's fine. It's not taking us out. Your discomfort is not the problem of the divine union. That's basically what the energy is saying. It's like, you can choose to be in that space. That's your choice. I'm not going to pull you out of it, but we're not going to change our tune because you don't like this, you don't like the song. Masculine and feminine in separation. This is feminine literally looking to masculine right now and saying, do you understand how to hold a note? Do you understand? I know that you might be passionate. I know that you might be able to hit high notes and low notes. Can you hold a note? Because feminine is utilizing that right now to articulate and amplify whether they feel like there is an ability to maintain a divine union with the energy of the masculine. And that, again, that point is also helping feminine heal anything from the past, because there may be energy in the past that feminine may have felt drawn to because, yeah, that was a really cool high note. That was an awful low note. It was awful. But the better question is for feminine, the consistency is the key. And feminine is now looking right now to see, even if this is old energy approaching feminine, to see and say, have you learned how to carry a note? Have you learned how to maintain that consistency? Or is that still something that you are trying to learn how to master within the self? Feminine's effectively almost saying to themselves, feminine's utilizing an obscene amount of patience right now. Feminine energy is even going to a point being like, I'm willing to wait. The feminine energy is basically saying in separation, I'll wait. I'll wait. And this is how the feminine is coming into that point of feeling like they're not leaving any energy behind. This is feminine being like, I'll wait if you want to practice. If you want to practice with me. If you want to practice with me, maintaining the note. If you want to practice, and I'll give you a credit. I'll give you a point in recognizing that you're allowed to tremor. If you are willing, I'm here if you want to practice. I'm willing to listen when you like hit those, like feminine's like, I'm willing to be here when like you are completely out of tune. But are you willing to try? Are we doing the same thing? Are we here to like try to maintain a note, or are you trying to do this? This is feminine almost effectively saying that to the masculine right now. It's saying, let's make sure that we're trying to do the same thing. And feminine almost saying, because if you're not here to learn that, if you're just here to sing any way you want, if you're here to like go on your little diva thing, I can't, that's fine. You can do that, but you can do it as you're alone. If you're here to like go on your little diva thing, I can't, that's fine. You can do that, but you can do it as you're alone. It might be a moment where you may be realizing now that what you are effectively seeking and what the feminine energy around you was seeking up until this point was like you guys were in the same room, but you were singing completely different songs. And you thought like what you thought was the test. You guys were like taking different, like recognizing to a certain extent that what you thought you were supposed to be learning may not have been what you feel like you were taught. And for masculine in this modality right now, this could be a lot of that, again, deeper childhood healing, because it's helping you recognize that you yourself are in a moment that you need to learn some stuff over again. It may be feeling like a little bit of energy here where you got to kind of start at the beginning. You know, it's almost like feeling like, again, like that skill you learned wasn't the skill. It's a trick. Like the skill that you thought you had was not actually the skill. It was a trick. But the problem that we're seeing for a lot of the masculine in separation right now is feeling like in a way you were kind of robbed of that education. Because and this is that sense of like personal internal child healing, feeling like no one necessarily taught that to you in the proper way, or observing how you may have seen it in the wrong way. So this is almost coming through a point of personal reflection that, again, feels somewhat difficult because it does feel like for a lot of the masculine energy and separation right now, like you kind of got to start from square one. Masculine and feminine continuing forward right now between our high priestess in its reversal in combination with our 7 of wands in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our justice in its reversal. So masculine and feminine energy that are moving through the divine union frequency. One of the things that we're effectively seeing at this time that may be feeling a little overwhelming is for the energy in the divine union, there is that trepidation that you're potentially recognizing right now with the feminine. You're seeing that sense of caution that the feminine has in seeing the masculine energy utilizing that gift of moving from a heart-based potentiality without feeling like that anxiety of consequence. That masculine is almost looking at the feminine to a certain extent and saying, I need to understand why you are so cautious about this. This is almost feminine coming through to a certain extent and amplifying to the masculine, if in the divine union frequency, exactly why the feminine energy has this sense of trepidation, almost like trying to amplify that ancestral feminine wound to the masculine. And masculine, if in the divine union frequency, this is a moment of deep, again, personal growth. Because this is a moment where you are feeling the struggles and the difficulty of the feminine energy in a way that you may not necessarily have experienced before. It's taking that burden on yourself because your own heart space is open and feeling that level of injustice almost feels like it's amplified immediately back to you. This is feeling or experiencing or seeing something that happened to the feminine energy in a way that you didn't experience before, because you realize and recognize that that never would have happened to you. That never would have occurred. That was never even a fear that you had. And it's that moment that, again, is almost building that strength in the divine union frequency, because it's a sharing of that mutual sense of injustice. It's the feminine energies, the injustice, the unfairness of a situation that is now effectively a part of the masculine's own journey because of the connectedness of the two energies. And masculine, again, almost amplifying to the feminine that point of recognition and saying, and this is why the masculine may be feeling that same sense of overwhelm that the masculine in separation is feeling right now, because this is a masculine saying, I can't fix that. I can't fix what happened to you. I'm powerless to have done anything about that at the time that it occurred. But it's almost amplifying and rebuilding the masculine energy's own sense of conviction and purpose right now, because it is magnifying to them and saying, all I can do moving forward in divine union is assure you that it is not going to happen again. That is the safe space. Feminine, again, feminine doesn't need a point of activation on something here. This is not feminine. Like, again, masculine moves a lot more like a masculine's looking for like a hammer to put a nail in. Feminine's almost saying, you sharing that point with me, you taking on that point of understanding, you actually feeling the same sense of injustice that I have about my experience, that is the connection of love. That is for the feminine, that further amplification of the bond of between in the divine union, because it's that sharing of the equal sense of that pain or that hurt that is amplifying to the feminine that they are, in fact, in that divine union frequency. It's the shared sense of that injustice and the assertion, the mutual assertion to prevent it from occurring forward. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is that moment that we see effectively that outside energy, that force that actually now shaped the divine union into being, actually that diamond energy, that pressure that created the divine union. This is that moment that, again, even if masculine isn't fully articulating it to the feminine, there is something here that feels like it is unfair. Because this is, again, the reason the divine union is potentially forming is because some of the energy around the divine union, masculine's feeling very protective of the feminine, because there's something about this. It feels like the energy around the masculine potentially was trying to pull a divine union apart by casting some point of doubt on the divine feminine within it. Masculine, again, if coming into the divine union frequency, you are feeling that vibration of some kind of greater injustice. And this could even be for a lot of the energy in divine union, feminine, much like the energy already in the divine union frequency, opening up to masculine about similar experiences in the past, that a masculine is coming closer to feminine because it is that recognition of that point of injustice, and not necessarily feeling like one can do anything about it, nor should one do anything about it, because it's not becoming a personal mission. It's just holding space, sharing space in it is amplifying the divine union frequency, because again, it's almost something that doesn't bear any action point, because that would just amplify the reactivity. It's something that both energies just kind of need to hold space for, right? It's not something that you can react against. It's just something that you need to share. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is why we see the feminine energy is feeling on the deepest, I have to stress, on the deepest wound possible if this is occurring. How much it pains the feminine to move into this space. Because this is a feminine that sees masculine energy, if masculine is trying to approach a feminine in this way, that sees how much easier things could be. The way things can come into a repair. This is literally looking at a masculine, if the masculine is coming towards feminine in that point of reactivity, and saying, you don't need to take that approach. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It could be so easy but feminine almost realizing that there's nothing that they can say to masculine energy if they're in that point of reactivity. Because if the masculine hasn't mastered that within the self, then the masculine energy will be reactive to it. There's nothing the feminine can say that can help a masculine in that modality. And in fact, the more that feminine says to the masculine in that modality makes it worse. So this is why we see feminine like holding back on these situations and circumstances, because it's almost the feminine saying, until you approach me with that sense of personal understanding, there is nothing I can do to create balance here. And it feels painful for the feminine, because this is a feminine that feels like they're denying that point of access to masculine, but almost feeling like a sense like the feminine's like seeing like there's nothing that the feminine can do to reach that energy until the energy is open to being, is open to receiving. Masculine energy, if in separation right now, this is that moment that you may be realizing this about yourself if in separation. And one of the things that may be happening right now that feels so heavy is looking at something now and feeling the distance of a feminine energy around you, or potentially multiple feminine energies around you, and realizing that if there's some feminine energy that's at a distance from you, maybe it's because everything that you are doing on like an emotional or energetic level, a tangible level or an energetic level, was one that you were pushing them away. 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 And then saying, why aren't you closer? Why aren't you closer to me? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you saving me? Why aren't you protecting me? As you're pushing them away. And for the feminine and masculine observing this, again, that sense, even in separation right now, this could be a moment that feels very empathetic for you, masculine, because you may be now experiencing and seeing something from the point of view of the feminine, and almost feeling the injustice of a situation where you're pushing someone away at every moment, but really hoping that they would, break through your own boundaries, violate your own consent, and come towards you, is not something that the feminine energy is ever comfortable doing. Like, the one thing that feminine has learned throughout their entire life is not to violate consent. So how can the masculine energy ever desire a feminine that they say, I'm going to put this boundary. I want you to just ignore everything I'm saying and drive closer to me through it. Masculine, you may be recognizing, if this has occurred, how unfair that is, and how the position that you may have put a feminine energy in may have almost created an impossibility point for them to be able to reach you. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Seven of Swands in its reversal in combination with our Hangman, may I please have one card to clarify? Magician in its reversal. And we love to see this card in this position. Because again, what are we seeing here that's occurring? Masculine and feminine. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. There's this moment of, again, assessing and understanding that there's some things outside and beyond your control. There are some things that you can't do anything about. How the energy around you receives what you're putting forth is entirely up to that energy. And it's not your point in forcing it. Quite the opposite. It's almost this moment of recognizing that a lot of that has to just be the consistency of something, employing that wait or see, allowing that to be a moment. And this is how we see that the energy that's moving forward in this way is healing. It's almost that recognition point that you're not going forth in this way, this healing that the energy in the divine union's putting in terms of those unhealed karmic connections right now. It's almost that reminder. It's like almost like a tap to someone and say, listen, take all the time you need, but the door's open. The door's not closing. Whenever you're ready to come off of this, whenever you're ready to release this pain between us, whenever you're ready to let that go, it can be as easy as possible to come back in. The door is always open. We are waiting for you to come into it. If you want to persecute yourself, if you want to continue holding on to that pain, that's okay. That's your choice. It's all right. Again, even it's almost a masculine and feminine saying, it's not my job to get you off of that. But when you're ready, just know that you can come in. It's fine. It's there. And in a way, this is masculine and feminine almost saying, like, when you're ready to do that, we'll be waiting for you. Any minute and it's almost saying to them, the energy around the unhealed energy right now, at any moment, the minute you decide that you want to come out of that, just know that we're here. Just know that we're waiting. It's okay. You know? Like that in a way is masculine and feminine going through right now and saying, like, this is how they're extending that level and degree of care and love. Not forcing anybody, but saying, you've been invited. You can come inside anytime you want. And if you choose to stay outside, though, don't say it's not because I said you couldn't come in. It's just because you're choosing to, right? Masculine and feminine that are coming into divine union right now. This is that modality that we are effectively seeing that's almost creating this space or place right now wherein we see that, again, there's some feeling right now of the pressure that was put on the divine union forming. It's heavy. It's difficult. There's a lot of pressure here. But what we effectively see at this time is this point of observation that, again, masculine and feminine, they're not reacting to it. They're not moving back into that modality. They're not utilizing it as like a call to arms. Masculine and feminine are saying, we're continuing forward. We're going to concentrate on what we're creating for ourselves at this moment. We're going to concentrate on building that divine union. And if they want to be in that space or place that they're oppositional to the divine union, then that's their business. That's okay. That's not effectively masculine and feminine saying that energy around the energy that's causing the difficulty in the divine union forming. This is masculine and feminine saying it's not our business how energy around us chooses to navigate. All we need to do is concentrate on what it is that we ourselves are trying to create. Feminine energy in separation right now. This is that moment that we are effectively identifying wherein the feminine energy is now just taking kind of a wait and see approach as it relates to the masculine energy that's coming towards them at this time to articulate and identify whether the energy itself realizes that divine union is not something that you can drop on the table like a Christmas goose to someone and say, do you want this or not? That's not the way divine union works. It's not something that one person can effectively offer or pull back. It's something that is mutually created and maintained and sustained. So for the energy in that modality right now, what we're effectively seeing is feminine is moving right now in separation by identifying and articulating and saying to themselves, I'm looking for other energy that recognizes that divine union is something that is created every moment. It's not something that you do once and then you forget. It's not like a set it and forget it. It's something that you constantly need to work on. It's constantly occurring. For the masculine and feminine in that modality right now, it's that point of recognition. And it's happening in separation. Feminine right now is recognizing that in separation, and feminine's utilizing that as their point moving forward. Masculine energy in separation right now, this is potentially a dawning understanding on what it is that you need to maintain in order to find like actual love. Final cards for today's spread between our Justice card and its reversal in combination with our Magician. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our World card. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now. This is that moment that we're effectively seeing wherein it is that point of understanding and recognition on terms of what it is that you're truly trying to create at this time. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union are navigating that flow state, maintaining that. Again, it is the understanding that the divine union frequency is something that you can't just do once and let go of. It's something that you constantly inhabit. You constantly put effort and energy in. It's like a whirlpool. It's like you're like, how do you create a whirlpool? You swim in that direction over and over and over again. You make that occur. You create it. You keep it. You maintain that. It's an energetic space. And that the way that you move is how you maintain the frequency. It's how you stay in that space. And that's masculine and feminine, again, almost letting that energy spread out around them at this time, building that ability, trying to heal what is around them at this time to allow that to be kind of amplified, if you will. Masculine and feminine in separation, in coming into divine union right now, this is how, and this is what's beautiful about it, for the energy coming into the divine union frequency right now, it's not the fact that you don't feel that oppositional energy around you at this time. It's almost that point in recognizing that you're not letting yourself get thrown off course, trying to change it, trying to adjust it, trying to react to it. That all you do is continue in this fashion. All you do is continue in that direction. And in a way, in itself, that's that moment, much like the energy that's already in divine union. You're having that point of recognition and saying, if they want to kind of move back, like if they want to come into this, if they want to share and appreciate our joy, then they're always willing to share in our joy. If they want to be oppositional, we can't change it. We just need to keep moving this way. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is feminine energy. A lot of the feminine energy that's in separation right now, I told you, it's like that touching point. Coming close to something to a certain extent, feeling like you saw something for a minute that was almost there, and then it was pulled away from you at the last moment because someone lost their attention span. Someone let themselves get distracted away from building that. But for feminine right now, it's that point of observation in terms of saying, I am looking for energy right now. Feminine's almost saying to themselves, I've seen it, I've experienced it. And this is feminine now feeling like, feminine's almost saying, I know how to maintain that. I know how to find that within myself. I'm doing that work. I'm looking for energy that also understands, that also has mastered that ability within the self, has already grown enough in the self that they recognize that this isn't something that we can just give each other. It's something that we need to build around each other at every moment. Masculine in separation, this could be a lot of this moment that feels like a bit of a turning point for you, because this could be a moment, and it could feel to a certain extent a bit of an injustice happening here, because this is almost the feminine. This is a moment where you may be feeling like you're going through a lot of this personal re-education for yourself, because it's almost this feeling of, again, that healing of that inner child, feeling like something that you were taught, the way you were taught it, was misunderstood. It was misconstrued. It's like you got the wrong memo. And so working through this moment right now is almost this point of like personal actualization, personal healing, because you're recognizing right now that, again, love isn't a game of keep away. It's not a ball that you give someone or choose who gets it. It's something that you have to create with another person over and over and over again via your choices, via your priorities. That's how you maintain the frequency. So moving into this right now could be feeling like, even for masculine in separation right now, there's that point of recognizing that where you are right now, if in separation, is because potentially you've been making the choices to stay in separation. And that all you need to do to come out of separation is start making the choices that wouldn't keep you in separation. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is 3 of Cups in its reversal. Now, you remember what I said? Masculine and feminine energy, if in divine union, there's this moment that we're effectively seeing right now. That like, remember what I said, that this energy can feel kind of annoying? Like, this is effectively like that moment that feels kind of annoying, because it's masculine and feminine energy moving in that vibration right now, and just kind of being like, if you don't understand, you don't understand. You either get it or you don't. You get it or you, like, if you want to be in that modality, that's fine. This is almost masculine and feminine energy looking around them right now, and it feels a little bit like, it feels almost confusing, because it's almost like looking at energy around them right now that feels like they just don't want to be in that state or space of like happiness. And it's almost like this moment for masculine and feminine, that's that point of observation, is like, if someone wants to be like there, if someone wants to like propel misery, the energy in the divine union's like, well, we can't stop them. Like, that's just what they want to do. It's like, okay, it doesn't make much sense, but it's a little confusing for the energy outside of it. Masculine and feminine that are moving into divine union right now, this is feeling this as much more as a point of anxiety. Because this is almost, again, feeling something that's happening right now about the divine union forming, and feeling this like point of sadness, because it feels like there's a lot of energy around it that feels almost like oppositional to it. But it's almost because it's in that outside in mentality, and almost recognizing now that it feels like that creation of that space, is almost building this like point of resistance in some of the energy around you that needs to be kind of navigated right now, because this is also what amplified and created the divine union in the first place. Masculine and feminine that are in separation right now. This is feminine tired, exhausted of masculine energy that doesn't recognize that keeping one's options open, that all of that outside energy, that when you try to please everyone all of the time, you end up with nothing. Like, this is feminine energy almost having that moment of feeling like a lot of the masculine, the frustration point is masculine energy, feeling this like weight of a masculine that's too easily drawn away due to a fear of missing out. That point of fear, that fear of missing out is like literally enough to trigger the masculine abandonment wound, to move them out of that frequency. And the masculine not realizing that they are doing it themselves. Masculine in separation right now, this could be a moment where you feel like you were taught that was a sign, that was some kind of sign of triumph. To have all of this energy always pulling on you was like a sign of like how rich you were. But in fact, no, it just shows the fact, if you're moving in that modality, that you allow yourself to get easily distracted from what it is you truly seek. That is our daily collective read for today. I'd like to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Also, please keep in mind that if you're going to book a reading on my website, it is a 2-step process. You have to book the reading and you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please, 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 please remember that I will never reach out to you for a private reading. I'm never going to DM you. I'm never going to PM you. I'm never going to slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these readings. And we will do this again tomorrow. Guys, that was the Daily Collective. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful message. I'm okay with